friends, this is Manoj Agrawal from Banking Frontiers. Today I am here with Nikhil Rathi. He is a co-founder and CEO of Web Werks. Web Werks is a data center company that has played a major role in India. Recently, it got a big funding of $150 million from Iron Mountain. So congratulations, Nikhil, on that investment, on that inflow. We look forward to hearing from you how you see the financial sector and this data center sector, particularly Web Werks, work together, create value for each other, and benefit everyone. So I'm really happy to meet you and look forward to an insightful interaction.
Thank you for having me, Manoj. I'm looking forward to share more input on Web Werks and Iron Mountain Data Centers joint venture.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you. Okay, Nikhil, let's begin with this contrasting scenario. On one hand, mobile payment volumes are going up. More and more people are using mobile payments. Mobile payment values are growing up. More and more fintechs are jumping into the payment space and mobile banking space. But at the same time, we see more and more cash in the system. Cash usage is going up. We are seeing banks still using 15, 20-year-old technology, which is really shocking. Given this contrasting scenario, where do you think the tipping point is where we can expect to see end-to-end digital transformation rather than piecemeal digital transformation? What would you say?
Yeah, Manoj, it's a fair question, and I think it's very difficult to stop this altogether because cash, if we actually fundamentally look at human psychology, cash it gives you a lot of sense of security. Right? So because it gives you a lot of sense of security, it's just like gold, but gold, of course, you can't carry around. Cash is never going to go out of existence, at least not for the near future, because when you travel, you want to be carrying some cash in your pocket. So it's not going to go away. Until we don't have a proper, even in these interiors, until we don't have a proper transformation happening to the, in those locations. When I say I'm not talking about digital transformation, I'm talking about generally technological transformation that has to flow through and percolate down right to the, the rural or even to the hill stations for that matter. For that, you need an ecosystem that needs to be in place. And that ecosystem is like the edge data centers, which are already existing abroad. So coming back to that thing, in terms of transformation and, now coming to the second part, the banks or fintechs and others, older generation using legacy 15, 20-year-old applications and 15, 20-year-old systems. Well, again, digital transformation of these systems is a very hard task. Why? Because they're built across multiple levels of, rules and regulatory compliances. So it's very difficult. How many people get actually involved in this? You've got your compliance guys, you've got your regulatory, you've got, the CISOs, the security guys, and them trying to make sense of all the zero-day security that's everywhere, right? So it's not easy. So, and then the general attitude, if it's not broken, why fix it? Correct? So if you have all of these things in mind, that 15-year-old system is not exactly, we shouldn't treat it as a problem. It itself is transforming. So people are writing bridge applications and bridge systems on top of that to enable it to still transact. So, it's not going to be you don't just take it, wrap it in a piece of paper and throw it behind you, right? You're going to be basically seeing that system evolve. So when we look at getting 100% digital, I think it's going to be a journey which is never ending. It's just going to go on and we're going to go on. And with the metaverse coming in, I think we're dealing with an even bigger thing, right? I think the change is coming so rapidly that the systems will have to also evolve, but they will not evolve so rapidly, right? That's what I see as something. So it's just going to be a transformational process. You're going to see not piecemeal, but pandemic kind of induced swift digital transformation really help, right? So it's not something that I am Nostradamus and I can just predict, but I can definitely tell you one thing, that it is going to be fast-paced when it requires to be fast-paced and slow down when it requires to be slowing down, right? And because there's just so many game players and people involved in that transformation, it's not easy.
Wonderful, Nikhil. So what I would like to know next is, what do you think are the barriers that are holding back financial organizations from becoming full digital enterprises? Is it people skills, or is it technologies, or technology cost, or migration difficulties, or reluctance to change, resistance to change, or something else? What do you see as the challenge?
I think that's a good question, and I think there's a lot of thought that needs to be put to it. I think you've put in a lot of variables inside it. Okay. People, process. I would say people, process, regulatory, which I already touched upon, and then I would put it as also as the ecosystem, right? So let's take one at a time. Let's quickly go through the people, right? Now, people are both internal, external. Internal people are always going to have a challenge in adopting. I mean, it's a management dictum that change is always something that people do not like, right? So that's always going to be there, and that's something psychological. I think that organization needs to work on and different organizations, different type of people, and you've got to work on that. So that's something that we really have to overcome irrespective. So we'll jump to the process, right, and the regulatory. Now, regulatory challenges do happen, and in terms of financial companies, financial fintech, and others, again, something that they've got to bridge over. Continues to be in touch with regulatory requirements, regulatory frameworks, make sure that their systems are actually adapting to that change, which is coming through, right? I think more important though than all of this, because this is fundamental. It is what you've got to go through. It's like basically going from first grade to 10th grade. You've got to go through it, and the exams and the questions will be different. So you've got to go through that. Right. The key here is the external factor, which is not in your control. Correct? And the external factor is the ecosystem. Correct? The ecosystem that is supporting this digital transformation. Right? When we talk of public cloud, we talk of data centers, we talk of locations, right? This and the telecommunications. These are the pivots or the clear points that you have to make sure are already there. Correct? I mean, it's simple. You have to make sure that this is what you take advantage of in your digital transformation journey. Okay. Correct? When I talk of the ecosystem, I'm talking about interconnection, how lower latency can allow you to do transactions faster and swifter. I mean, think of it like a video game, right? The sooner you get it over with, the guy's buying the next stuff. So you want, right? So he wants to finish one level and do the next thing. So you want him to transact faster, and for that the system has to support, the telecommunications, everything has to support. Now, when we talk about the fintech people, right? Everything is transactions. Everything has something to do with motivating the person to and give him an easier feel into it, as well as a better understanding of how the customer is doing that. And that is about speed and latency. Again, edge ecosystems will have to come into play. Edge telecommunication, we don't even have proper 4G or 3G in most locations. I mean, if you travel, and I'm particularly talking about India right now, if you travel and get out of the main cities and start to go into the mountains, right, there are people living there. There are, people living in the mountains with electricity there, but no access to digital fintech access, right? And we're talking about a massive amount of people who don't have access to all of this. So that if that ecosystem is not there, that's the biggest barrier. That's what we got to bridge over. Because people, process, regulatory, you have to anyway do that. You've got to do that for the city, you've got to do that. How will you reach those people? How will you reach 70% or 60% of the population which is outside the purview of this, and reach them pervasively, right? Reach them in their language. Leave aside, you reach them in their language, but what about that? How do you reach them? There's no road to reach them. So I think that needs to get developed, that road which allows you to travel. And that is what I think everybody should be also keeping and considering, that it's about bringing the masses online. It's about making sure that the road exists.
So Nikhil, it is interesting to see how the ecosystem is enabling and driving innovation within an organization. So let's look at it. When organizations come to you with their requirements, and these organizations may come with different levels of technology maturity. So how does it work out?
So I think the main thing here is that a lot of our enterprises, including fintechs, right, or older financial banks and others, right, have, including insurance, have, we've traditionally been extremely good server huggers. we like to keep our equipment close to our hearts, right? I mean, if we could keep that next to our bed so we know it's right there. But if we look at traditionally, and still is, everything is on-prem. I mean, still I believe we've got about 90% of the workloads in financial sectors. Only 10% has moved off-prem. So when we consider this, on-prem has its challenges, right? The challenges is that if you want to have connectivity to cloud, you can't get that quickly. If you want to have multiple telecom providers, it becomes difficult. If you want to connect to National Payments Corporation or any other payment gateway, becomes even more difficult to handle. Because you're talking about branching out into so many different new avenues of connectivity and stuff that you want to connect to. Correct? You might want to use an AI/ML API of, let's say, a cloud provider. How do you do that? Now, that's where the on-prem story starts to deteriorate, right? And it deteriorates very rapidly because, like I was mentioning on digital transformation, right? You want to transform, but rather you're still wearing bell bottoms to a party where everybody's wearing, tights. So you've got to get rid of the bell bottom, or you've got to stitch it up, or go get a new bell bottom, right? So same concept applies to digital transformation, right? And these companies have to move their on-prem equipment out. Where do they want to move their equipment out? It's going to be data centers, which is why there's such a big boom in data centers everywhere. It's just mind-boggling. The on-prem stuff that you have, that if you pick up and you move into another secure location, which is co-located at a data center, you get access to so many more services faster. You become more agile. Instead of having the agility problems, you want to ramp up to a 5 gigabit or 10 gigabit capacity to an on-prem location, very difficult. So you can't take advantage of the peak loads. In a data center, that bandwidth's available on demand, because we're talking about terabits of bandwidth inside a data center for one telecom provider. So now you don't need to have that redundancy issues either. So you've in one stroke of moving that equipment, which was close to you, not by your bedside, but you moved it, right? You already changed the opportunities that are now available to you. With one wire, you can, and I'll talk about that a little later, about exchanges and stuff. With one wire, you could be connected to so many multiple carriers, so many multiple exchanges, so many multiple providers of different services. So I think the on-prem migration is the first step to transforming, so that you're doing your core functions and this is not your core function, move it out, and you get access to a whole new plethora of opportunities and services that you can actually consume to improve your application and your experience for your customers. And the first thing that you need to move out of that, if you want to prioritize, is to move everything that is public facing. Anything, employee portals which are public facing, people want to do, right down to even your customer facing stuff. So anything that you want to, which is publicly facing on the internet, that's the first thing you need to extricate and move into another data center or public cloud. Yes.
So I like the way you put it, that you convert a problem into an opportunity, and that ecosystem is, you don't have to do a lot of homework or innovation in-house. It's just the ecosystem gives you that advantage. So how do you see this panning out for different organizations with different levels of technology maturity? The kind of things that they come to you for.
Right. So I think different people are in a different part of the journey, right? I think saying they're fully mature is also not correct, because maturity is only a point in time assessment of where you, that's my understanding, is a point in time. Today you're mature, but tomorrow you may not be as mature as required for that period.
Yeah.
Right. So tomorrow you may not be as mature for that period. But in terms of maturity, I think the absolute bottom end of the organizations which have not got to it, right, they're still on-prem. I would say you have a number of cooperative banks and older banking customers, right? And these people are realizing, and they are approaching service providers, including cloud providers and data center providers, to see how they can jump off and get out. So that's the absolute low end, that everything is kept on-prem. We've had a number of customers actually who come up to us and ask us for this, how do we do this, or even stockbroking houses. So
Okay.
For instance, I'll tell you, the bottom tier. We had a stockbroking house, right, which was fairly large, but they had everything in on-prem. And what they had to do was they had a problem. The electricity would get cut out on the road digging works. Yeah, it actually happened. We're not talking about telecommunication, we're talking about fundamental electricity. Yes. And when that would go down, they were reliant only on their UPS, and a couple of times the UPS gave away. Right? Because you're not going to have a tier 3 kind or tier 4 kind of architecture or multiple levels of redundancy that a data center can provide. So finally they decided enough's enough and they moved out. Correct? Now they've matured, and because of that they've taken connectivity into various other cloud providers, national payment corporations. So many things have opened up, avenues have opened up for them. So this is just one example.
Okay.
Then there is another level of maturity where you're midway. You've decided, but you've not taken the step. Correct? That I think is still better to be in, because you've decided, right, to buy the insurance. Yes, you bought that, you've decided I want to buy that insurance and I want to buy the agility and I want to grow. And the third is an organization which already moved. And now they've started to consume that. So that means they're let's say their different storage needs, they're using an object storage from various cloud providers. Okay. They have a colocation, they have a private cloud, they're using the public cloud, they're using the public cloud for bursting, they're using AI/ML APIs, they're also connected into various cloud on-ramps, which we call basically that they are connected into various cloud providers to take advantage of GPUs from somebody, and to take, for processing AI/ML, and to take advantage of, let's say, somebody's financial API, so that they don't have to do some calculation or something like that. As simple as that. Right? Even that simple part can make such a big difference because of the advantage. So I think there are 3 levels of maturity, but I would not say the maturity ends somewhere that you're fully mature, but like I said, it's a journey. You got to do progressively, keep adopting, keep taking, and more services are coming online, so keep consuming. Yeah, but the problem over there is that seldom do people expose what they've actually achieved. Right? It is only through their public thing that you come to realize. But if you take a bank, for instance, you don't know, you get to use their online bank, but you don't know whether underlying they've actually transformed their systems or not. So that's unfortunate. It's inherent to the nature of financial technology and fintech and others. So I think that's part of the process. So you have to there's no uniform case study. You got to hear people, you got to ask them, you got to find out. And yeah, that's the right word. Dig it out. Yeah, nobody comes and tells you this is the master playbook.
It's not headline news
it's not headline news, and nobody releases a playbook. This is the playbook, play with it. Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Sounds good. So Nikhil, thank you for all those wonderful insights. It's really exciting to see how data centers can play a major role in the transformation of the financial sector, particularly banks, and make financial services readily and easily available to the common man in any part of the country. So thank you very much, Nikhil.
It's been interesting, very interesting talking to you, Manoj. Excellent. Thank you.